Hello, Bl'Artagnan here, bringing you a TCC challenge. I think our first one since Theodore's event. We have the Y'shtola Steam Krakens, these terrible, terrible jerks. We are bringing the team of 8, Paladin, Pecil, and Exdeath. So these guys, as mentioned, are kind of a pain. They move real fast, they hit real hard, and they're real tanky. Luckily, moving fast just means more turns for them to take off turn damage. And they can't hit what they can't touch, so that's where this team comes in. A lot of the strategy of this team is just kind of trying to maximize the uptime on your debuffs, just kind of making sure that you can squeeze that extra turn of lock or that extra, turn of Exdeath's LD or anything like that. I will admit I get a little bit lucky here and there with them targeting 8 before the lock goes into effect, which I really appreciate. 8's damage hasn't aged amazingly, but luckily we have a lot of great enablers like Paladin Pecil to just make sure he continues hitting like a truck. Trying something a little different here, since 8 also takes a crazy amount of time with his counters, and this video was originally about a half hour long, so I figured I'd try speeding it up, and since that made the music sound kind of goofy, tried dubbing it over with music. I hope you guys like it, and I hope it doesn't get me in trouble with anyone. So for now we're just, we're basically set up at this point, doing real well turn-wise. One of the things that kind of worried me about this fight as I was trying to practice it with this team and other teams was, specifically without using Aerith, is that orb where you need to heal for 50% with a single skill. Not too many people can do that. Paladin Pecil, Rude, Aerith and Y'shtola, of course, one's synergy and the other's just kind of seems to be made for this fight. So that you'll see that explains the Paladin Pecil friend, which is was essential for this team to be able to pull this off. The other cool trick, which you'll see a bit later, is the Rem call is real good for that, because it actually gives you, I think it actually heals her as well, so it ends up giving you like it completely resets the orb no matter how low it is, which is kind of cool. So as you can see here, we're getting pretty close to running out of our key LD and LD debuffs, the lock and the vortex, dissipating vortex. That's the thing. Except by probably my favorite character in the game, but apparently it doesn't keep me from forgetting his move names. I also tried using this fight with different summons and found that just at the end of the day, Paladin Pecil gives you so much damage that you can get away with using brothers and just cap, which is great. We love to see it. So you can see we're getting real close there. Is this going to do it? Yes, it's doing it. So in a lot of situations, if you don't prepare for it, this is the scary part of the run. Basically, if you're using anyone but 8, you're going to you need a pretty specific setup to make sure you're not about to get wrecked. For those who don't know, they frame their turns so that they can't be pushed back through break, delay, or deletion. Basically, the dev said, no, this attack's hitting. You saw people got a little bit creative with breaking in the RNA event to push them through frame turns and say, keep pushing them back. So these guys, once they frame their turns, they're going. There's nothing you can do to stop it. And what they do on their turn is basically say that whoever's the highest health dies. As I say that, they can't. As I said, they can't kill what they can't touch. really generous by the devs not making that a guaranteed hit. I feel like we dealt with a lot of that recently, or at least, you know, since 8 came out. So, I actually bought a cameo from Kryl, another one of my favorite units. Basically just to give us a little bit of time without needing to rely on Pecil's enchant to keep 8's damage up. The bonus weakness damage helps too, but this is basically just kind of to bridge a little bit so that we can squeeze a bit more time before we need to use either, you know, Pecil's LD to recharge his AA or anything like that. Kind of mess up the turnover a little bit, since you normally, with a counter character, want to kind of keep them. You want to not push them back like you normally do with breaking. So it's a little unfortunate that they seem to be getting pushed back now, but as you can see, you know, we're still doing fine there. Probably be able to fix this at some point. I'm guessing a big AoE attack will probably help us there. One downside to using Kryl actually is this paralysis. It actually robs us of a counter, which is kind of a pain, but I think it's a small price to pay for getting this kind of extra bit of enchant damage from 8. I'm cutting it a little bit close with the orb there, but I think we're going to be okay. Okay, here we go. This is what I was looking for, that opportunity to break them in such a way that they stop being pushed back. Let me tell you, after trying to run this fight a bunch without using 8, it's every move these guys do just fills me with a kind of creeping dread nowadays. They deal so much damage. I know you can use like an Aerith, Y'shtola, Celes, Pecil kind of sort of defensive team, and that I'm sure that does perfectly fine. I was trying to stretch myself a bit doing like weird stuff with Jack and things, and it gets stressful. You guys don't play around. Part of why they don't play around is because even if you do something like a really good single target tank like 8 or like Gladio or something, they still have this giant hit they do. So if you don't have someone like Pecil to protect the party, it can really kind of mess you up. That was a nice little launch there. The launches this fight aren't going to be optimal, but the off-turn damage really kind of makes that not really an issue. We're not so much racing the clock, like we're not racing the turn count or even necessarily the orb in this fight. We're really just racing our debuffs and making sure that we're trying to deal enough damage so that we don't run out of Exdeath LD or of 8 lock, because the worst case scenario for us is we get into a situation where we no longer can rely on them to attack 8, and then we're losing a bunch of damage and potentially taking a bunch of damage. Technically, we could run out of Paladin Pecil LD uses, and that could set off the orb, but that's why we bring the friend. Kind of cover that, and to a lesser extent, why we bring the Rim Call. So here's another. Maybe I could have used his skill 1 or something to get a better launch, but I just kind of figured his ZX is good, and in perils and whatnot. So something I'm kind of figuring out with Exdeath is he seems to. I'm still trying to figure out when the best time to use a skill 1 or skill 2 is if you're not trying to reapply anything. From what I can tell, skill 1's better when you have higher brave. Skill 2 is better when he has low brave, because I think skill 2 has a bigger gain and skill 1 has that bonus splash. But I'm not 100% on that. I'll probably need to play around a bit more to really nail it down. So we're starting to run low on our debuffs. I think Exdeath Dissipating Vortex already fell off, and we only have 1 turn of lock left. So we're really just trying to force them past that last, force them down to 50, because wasting an LD use here just to reapply that for like a turn or 2 would be kind of bad. But I think we should be fine to do that. That's some good damage. I mean, a lot of that is just coming from Pecil, but I'll take it. Yeah, you see there, that's the skill 1 dealing the big hit. Now, something you might notice with at the 80% mark, a counter is what set them back, and they ended up really far back in the turn order as a result. That was why it was important that we get them under 50 using a regular attack and not a counter. Just so that we don't have to wait for them to get closer and use their big attack and become debuff unimmune. Because that's another thing. When the turns are framed, they're immune to all debuffs, and that's not something this team wants to deal with. So the less time they can spend debuff immune, the better for us. Pretty sure the first turn after they do their big attack is always they go into that like self-targeting like steam mode. So I can probably get away with not using 8 LD on his next turn. That's kind of always a weird thing. You want to apply the LD as late as possible. If you can like get a few turns of them auto-targeting 8 or doing attacks that don't target anyone, you don't want to use the LD, just to maximize the number of lock turns you have, because 20 turns a total of lock isn't really that long. I'm really hoping one day they're going to give him 80, and that's just the ability to apply Cella's call for 8 is going to be huge, even if it doesn't get a rework at that time. Just because I think right now his biggest weakness, well, aside from his kind of really crummy individual damage without boosts, is just the fact that his lock doesn't last long enough to carry the whole fight in some cases. Here I'm just kind of doing the mental math and trying to figure out whether I want to LD or not. Basically, if they target 8 after this, we're going to be golden. If they don't, I'm going to feel like an idiot. So, 1, 2, up. There we go. That's exactly what we needed. That was perfect. Really couldn't have asked for a better setup there. So using the Pecil AA before the LD may have felt a bit redundant there, since the LD free skill goes into the AA. But I really just, you see all the turns they've taken before Cecil's next turn. I really wanted 8 enchanted during that time, just for the extra damage. You'll see later when I call in the Paladin, Cecil will actually use his first turn to enchant himself, even though that generally kind of feels like a waste of a friend unit turn, just because that enchanted 8 damage is so important for this team to work. Free little attack buff there, and also kind of protect against me inevitably forgetting to apply something. That's another thing, if you're the only reason to keep 8's that third charge of 8's AA once you've kind of got him up and running is to protect against like misplays or to give a tiny little attack boost. So as promised, here's that their AA usage again. Sorry, Remfall. Yeah, I completely forgot to mention. Well, I mentioned that earlier. Rem Call is really good for if you're using someone like Paladin Cecil as your like soul orb management tool. Having that extra charge of it from Rem is really good. I suspect a lot of people are going to use that somewhere or other. Especially helpful for Cecil because normally, he does that the rotation of LD into AA, so being able to kind of freely reset the orb without having to mess up your enchantment rotation is kind of nice. There's that massive launch damage. Yeah, look at that. 10k off that launch. That's kind of sad. But. I'm pretty sure. I kind of did something dumb in putting Pecil in the middle there because it makes it really hard to see when A is launchable. If I remember right, I'm pretty sure he is, and I don't notice because it's just hard to see. We're really getting to that point, so time to bring in the guy. So this is kind of a weird... This took some getting used to for me, actually. We're not going to go into the summon here while friend Pecil's out, even with his burst running. Again, because we're trying to maximize our debuff stuff, and I don't know what call it's talking about there when I said continuing using... That was weird. But basically, we want to get as much damage as possible out while these debuffs are up. Especially the lock. Once we run out of the lock, we're kind of in a bit of trouble, and so we're basically saving the summon to give us a big damage window once we're out of lock completely. Oh, now's probably a good time for me to warn you. At about turn 57, my phone stopped recording because it could only record about 27 minutes of footage at a time, and I only noticed that it stopped at about turn 62, so we're going to jump ahead real fast once we hit turn 57 to turn 62. The only thing you missed there is a couple of 8 counters, and I think like a Pecil skill 2 and a Exdeath skill 1, so like, sorry if you were looking forward to seeing those. I'll try to do better next time. Yeah, we got the hero here. One more lock available to us. We could apply it there, but I'm not going to. I'm going to play another one of those risky games where we hope that they target 8 after this. Just so that we can try to squeeze out a bit more lock turn. Okay, there we go. I had a feeling they might go into the all attack after this. They have a pattern of attacking where it's, I think they do like left steam, right steam, all attack, some I don't know what it is exactly, but you can kind of get a feel for when they're going to do certain moves. And I had a feeling the all attack was coming here. Yeah, okay. Again, we could have maybe tried to risk them. Kind of hope that they attacked 8 after this, but that's a big risk to take, so I think it's probably for the best that we just lock them down now. Oh, there we go, there's the jump. So, as you can imagine, it was 2 enemy attacks, a bunch of 8 counters, and Pecil came back, did his thing, and Exdeath did his. A big situation change since when that jump happened. So once again, we're not going to summon yet. It probably looks a little bit crazy, they're 10% or whatever. I'm probably looking super conservative here, but we just ran out of our lock turns. And I can tell you from personal experience that if we're not super careful about when we go into the summon, we can end up kind of messing things up right at the end. That's like kind of a cost of using 8 as your primary tank. Yeah, we can just go ahead and shard this. I'll explain what I'm so nervous about it as we get to the end. It'll make a bit more sense when we get there. But trust me that I've done this a few times, and if you gotta be a little bit precise toward the end just to make sure you can properly maximize your 8 dodges and stuff like right there. This run got a bit lucky in that both times that my lock wasn't up, they targeted 8. I don't know if that was because he had the most health or if I just got lucky, but if that hadn't happened, it would have really kind of screwed me up. Now, okay, 5 and 4%. 4%, both of them. In theory, I should have this in the bag. nice fat launch. But the thing is, none of these guys have, okay, even Pecil, none of these guys have great on-turn damage. They are all heavily reliant on off-turn damage. Okay, well, Pecil isn't reliant on off-turn damage. Yeah, maybe I didn't need to AA there. I wonder, looking back, maybe I could have killed him in the summon if I hadn't done that, but again, I was really nervous about 8's his damage from, well, without enchantment, so I wanted to make sure that was up. So here's the thing. I actually lost, the run before this one I actually lost, because I failed the hit point requirement because this happened, more or less. I hadn't played it exactly this way, but... okay, so he's gone. He loses his debuffs. Now last time I did this, he had this move queued up, and I lost the hit. He did his all attack to put us under the hit point requirement, and then 8 killed him with the counter before I could try to heal up. So I need him to die here. That's why I've been so antsy earlier. And we got it. So it got a bit tested at the end. I know most of this looked like an autopilot kind of dumb fight, but there was some debuff management that kind of, and some luck that came into it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun, but again, a lot of stress, but we got there. Please consider giving this video a like and subscribing if it's helpful for you and entertaining. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you around.